Well, time now to turn our attention to the international papers, and Diptyque Laurent is with us in studio. Diptyque, we're going to start, I believe, with the Saudi prince's quite extended trip to the United States.
It's almost a holiday, really. He's spending 3 weeks in the States. Prince Mohammed bin Salman touched down in the States yesterday in Washington. He'll be there for 3 weeks, and his trip will take him from Washington to Wall Street, then LA, San Francisco, Seattle, and south to Houston. Obviously, firstly, he'll be meeting with President Donald Trump in a trip really that aims to boost bilateral ties. But as you see from this article from Business Insider, it's also about changing his image, maybe even more so about changing his image rather than his politics, because the young prince knows that he needs to change Saudi Arabia's reputation as being oppressive towards women, as being ultra-conservative, in order for it to impact future trade contracts.
And of course, the contacts he has with the US are said to be improving, largely thanks to Donald Trump's son-in-law.
Well, this is really interesting. This is an article from the Washington Post that says the Saudi prince and Jared Kushner first met a year ago in Washington, and ever since have forged a bond. They're both relatively young. They're in their 30s. They regularly talk to each other. And Kushner, in fact, convinced Donald Trump to make Saudi Arabia his first foreign trip after he became president, despite advisors saying not to. It seems that this political freelancing has upset some national security and intelligence officials, but it is being lauded by Jared Kushner's allies as being unorthodox yet effective. Now, not everyone, though, is buying into this charm offensive. Al Arabi Al Jadid, which is a pan-Arab paper close to Qatar, calls it the season of wars and contracts. A rather cynical article saying, we all know how this is going to pan out even before it begins. Both men are going to fall over their feet trying to complement each other. It's not the first time they're meeting, but this meeting promises to be dangerous for the Middle East, because now both sides agree on issues like Iranian nuclear development, which has literally become an obsession.
Okay, well, let's stay on the topic of US politics for a while, and a high-profile actress has thrown her name in the hat for the governor of New York.
You'll recognize her here, Cynthia Nixon. She was famously played Miranda on Sex and the City. She's announced she'll be challenging Governor Andrew Cuomo in the Democrat primary in 6 months. She's clearly leaning on her star power. Get this, Eve, her video announcing she was running yesterday topped 1 million views on Twitter, and she was the #1 trending topic nationwide within 20 minutes of that video being uploaded. If she's elected, she'd be the first female governor of New York and the first openly gay governor of New York. So definitely she's playing the progressive card, or at least running on a progressive platform. She'll be campaigning on issues like New York subway system, although it may not be an easy feat at a time when we're all a bit jittery about celebrity leaders.
But also at the time where social media tends to have a lot of power, so
exactly.
Definitely one to watch. Well, let's move on to Norway now, where a looming political crisis has been averted.
Well, a leading Norwegian newspaper reports that Norway was actually on the brink of collapse. The Conservative Prime Minister Erna Solberg and her three-party minority government were facing a vote of no confidence because their Justice Minister went on Facebook last week and basically accused the centre-left opposition party of valuing the rights of terrorists over that of national security. This really hit a nerve, because you'll remember that the Labour Party's youth were the ones who were targeted in that 2011 attack by Anders Breivik. Well, that Justice Minister has now resigned, according to Dagbladet, a daily paper in Norway. She says she announced her resignation on Facebook, saying she was a victim of a witch hunt, and that Norwegian politics has been turned into a kindergarten, and that it was her responsibility now to be the adult.
Okay, well, heading across to Japan, the sport of sumo wrestling has been embroiled in another scandal. Yet
another scandal, you might say. This sport just keeps taking a beating. The 20-year-old second division sumo wrestler Takayo Shitoshi has been pulled out of the Grand Sumo tournament. This after he admitted beating a junior wrestler on several occasions. As the Japan Times reports, it's not the first time scandal has hit the sport of sumo wrestling. Last year, another high-profile wrestler was found guilty of inflicting head wounds on a fellow wrestler during a drinking session. And now the Sumo Wrestling Federation has been under pressure to deal harshly and swiftly with this bad behaviour.
To keep the fighting only when it's in the competition.
Exactly.
Well, finally, Diptyque, and I've been dying to get onto this story because we looked briefly at International Francophonie Day, the celebration of the French language, but today is also International Happiness Day.
It's also the first day of spring here in the...
You wouldn't know it by looking outside
No,
in
you
France.
wouldn't know it.
It's pretty cold here.
It's a very important day, March the 20th. For this occasion, the website Huffington Post has interviewed a Harvard professor. He's a professor in positive psychology, or I guess professor of happiness. He revealed some of his secrets to getting through a difficult day. He says things like a smile, a brisk walk, working out, or playing a sport 3 to 4 times a week genuinely does have a good impact on your well-being. He also advises leaving your cell phone at the office when you go out to lunch with colleagues, so enjoying the presence of your colleagues. He also suggests mixing up your transport route, because that could be the worst part of your day, is a sort of the daily drudge to and from work. Well, he says get off a stop earlier or take a different route. That might help you clear your mind, stimulate your mind, and aid the process of reflecting on your day.
Okay, all those classic things of taking time out to relax, easier said than done sometimes.
Very much so.
Hey, we can smile. Diptyque Laurent, thanks a lot for that review of the international papers. Time for a quick break now, but we're back with all the latest updates, and we'll be taking a closer look at that news that former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is in police custody. He's been questioned in an investigation over the financing of his presidential campaign back in 2007.